Coming up on the newscast, heavy rain advisories issued in the capital region and select areas of Gangwon province, despite the downpours, scorching temperatures continue in the southern regions. South Korea has delivered its intention to participate in the Chip 4 amid strong backlash expected from China. Seoul's foreign ministry is set to explain its stance to Beijing. Turning to the war in Ukraine, rockets struck the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. The radiation levels are reportedly within normal range. The UN chief called for access to the facilities. Hello, your week's off to a smooth start. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The capital region is being pounded by heavy downpour. Alerts have been issued in affected areas, but the rain is showing no signs of letting up. Song Yoo-jin went out to examine the situation.
Heavy rain pounded South Korea's capital region on Monday.
Just like here in Yeongdeung-pogu district of western Seoul, the central part of the country has been experiencing heavy rain, about 50 to 180 millimeters today alone.
In response, the Korea Meteorological Administration announced heavy rain warnings for Seoul, most parts of the surrounding Gyeonggi-do province, the city of Incheon, and Cheolwon of Gangwon-do province. A heavy rain warning is issued when 3-hour rainfall is expected to surpass 90 millimeters or 12-hour rainfall goes over 180 millimeters. Simply put, under such weather, it's hard for people to even see what's in front of them. And there's growing concerns over damage. In the capital Seoul, the Dongbu Expressway was completely closed off in the evening due to rising water levels. Over in Incheon, located in the northwest of the country, roads, underpasses, and even buildings have flooded. The region received around 80 to almost 120 millimeters of rain. Fortunately, local authorities say no casualties have been reported so far. All of this is due to what's called a stationary front, created when warm and cold air push against each other, but neither are powerful enough to move the other, resulting in showers. But this rainfall is expected to last longer. The KME predicts heavy rainfall will continue for the central part of the country until Wednesday or even up to Thursday. During this time, about 100 to 250 millimeters of rain are expected, but some areas could see up to 350 millimeters. To minimize any further damage, authorities are advising people to stay away from streams and rivers that are prone to flooding. They should refrain from visiting mountainous regions that are vulnerable to landslides. Also, those who are going outside should use public transportation rather than driving. 송유진, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed to prioritize taking care of people's livelihoods. The South Korean leader ordered senior officials to thoroughly manage rising prices ahead of Chuseok. Yoon Jung-min shares with us his remarks.
President Yoon came back to work on Monday after a week-long summer break, renewing his vow to put Koreans first even when crafting the nation's policies.
제가 국민들께 해야 할 일은 국민들의 뜻을 세심하게 살피고 늘 초심을 지키면서 국민의 뜻을 잘 받드는 것이다 하는 그런 생각을 휴가 기간 중에
As his job approval rating plunged to new depths, President Yoon asked his aides to level up their communication and swiftly come up with measures against rising prices ahead of Chuseok or Korean Thanksgiving in about 4 weeks.
President Yoon instructed stronger communication to better work for the people and thoroughly manage prices while taking good care of people's livelihoods.
With Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, Yoon discussed ways to overhaul state affairs so that they meet the public eye and call for crafting policies based on careful review of public sentiment. Later this week, President Yoon will meet with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Seoul to talk about North Korea's nuclear weapons and regional security. The South Korean leader is invited to the general debate of the 77th UN General Assembly this September in New York. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The government will announce measures to bring prices down ahead of Chuseok coming up in early September. To revitalize the economy, there are plans to address labor shortages by bringing in more foreign workers. Ji-young has the details.
South Korea's consumer prices this year are likely to hover around 5%, with the average rate of inflation from January to July hitting 4.9%. Given this backdrop, Finance Minister Chuseok said at an emergency economic meeting on Monday that the government will announce measures this week to stabilize people's livelihoods ahead of the Chuseok holiday. This will be on top of the measures announced earlier, including giving subsidies to farmers and providing tariff exemptions on some imported food products. Chu also said he'll seek for ways to resolve the difficulties that firms are experiencing.
To revitalize the private sector, the government will quickly resolve any difficulties that companies are facing, including in terms of regulations, finding funding, as well as labor shortages.
He added that there have been labor shortages in key industries, including shipbuilding and the services and agricultural sectors, because of a rise in demand for labor in the service industry following the lifting of social distancing measures and a delay in allowing foreign laborers into the country due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will increase the quota for foreign employees and issue E9 visas more quickly for non-Korean laborers in August.
The government will swiftly let 42,000 foreign laborers come to South Korea who couldn't enter the country from 2020 to first half of this year. Also, steps will be taken to let an additional 21,000 foreign employees enter the country quickly in the second half of this year.
Also, the government will sell public assets that are not being used effectively in order to further boost the economy. 엄지영, Arirang News.
Seoul and Beijing's top diplomats will sit down for talks on Tuesday. The two are expected to discuss a range of issues, possibly including South Korea's participation in the U.S.-led semiconductor alliance. Kim Dami provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Seoul is going to take part in the so-called Chip 4, the Washington-led semiconductor alliance aimed at cooperation in chip supply chains. South Korea's top diplomat Park Jin made clear Seoul's stance speaking to reporters on Monday before he left for China for talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi the next day.
The alliance is not meant to exclude any particular country, so I will go over and discuss these various issues with China.
This is very much in line with what South Korean President Yoon said earlier in the day, that each ministry is looking closely into the matter from the perspective of the national interest. Despite Seoul's repeated emphasis on South Korea's national interest, Beijing sees the pact as nothing more than a grouping aimed at countering its influence in global supply chains. Details are yet to come out, but the first such meeting of the Chip 4, also involving Taiwan and Japan, could take place as soon as the latter part of this month or early next month. Park has a lot on his plate during his 3-day visit to Qingdao, in particular the escalating U.S.-China tensions over Taiwan. While reiterating his support for the One China principle, the top diplomat stressed that China is well aware that peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait is essential to security and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. His trip comes ahead of the two countries' 30th anniversary of bilateral ties on August 24th, so Park will also be looking to expand cultural exchanges like K-pop and K-dramas, particularly among young people. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
China announced that it conducted anti-submarine and naval strike exercises near Taiwan on Monday. A statement issued by the country's military did not provide any further details, including the exact location. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said it detected Chinese warplanes and warships around the island. The recent drills are a response to a visit there by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi last week, with Beijing culminating its largest ever exercise around Taiwan, which involved bombing raids and missile attacks. Pyongyang appears to be dismantling more South Korean-built facilities in the Mount Kumgang resort, where the two sides used to operate a joint tour program. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, more demolition work has recently been witnessed, referring to few buildings that include the Hyundai Asan Kumgangsan office. This follows a report to that effect last Friday from NK News. The regime started demolition work with the Haegeumgang Hotel in March and the Ananti Gulf Resort in April. The nation's daily COVID-19 tally stood at 55,292, the lowest figure in a week. There were 29 deaths. South Korea started administering Evusheld, which can prevent severe illness in people at high risk. It offers protection from the virus for up to 6 months for those who cannot get vaccinated due to select health conditions. Only those 12 and above weighing at least 40 kilograms that have not been infected or unknowingly exposed to COVID within the last week are qualified to get Evusheld. South Korea's education minister tendered her resignation just a month after taking office. The announcement was made Monday afternoon at an emergency press briefing. If President Yoon accepts her resignation, Park Sun-hye will be the first minister to resign under this administration. There's been a backlash against her among teachers and parents over a proposal to have kids start elementary school at age 5 instead of 6. Park was also under pressure to quit over a plan to abolish foreign language high schools. Critics said the proposals were hasty and did not take into account public opinion. The minister says she takes responsibility for causing controversy and wishes the children a brighter future. The People Power Party is one step away from switching to an emergency leadership. However, the currently suspended chairman, who will automatically lose his post in the process, vowed to file an injunction. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
More leaders of the ruling People Power Party have now stepped down in an attempt to pave the way for a smoother transition into an emergency leadership system. That includes PPP Secretary General Han Gi-ho and Spring Council member Chung Mi-kyung, who follows other members of the party's decision-making body.
I'd put resolving the party's division and crisis as soon as possible before anything else.
It's out of courtesy that I step down before a new Secretary General is appointed tomorrow by the interim leader.
The latest resignations effectively dissolve the party's leadership one day before it seeks ultimate approval to launch an emergency leadership system. It will convene a virtual National Committee meeting on Tuesday where around 1,000 members will be asked to approve two things: a revised party rule that enables an acting chair to elect an interim leader in case of a suspension of chairperson, and the appointment of an interim leader. Once approved, the emergency leadership could kick off as early as this Friday, and Chairman Lee Chuseok, who is currently suspended over a sexual bribery allegation, would automatically lose his post. And over the weekend, PPP lawmaker Joo Ho-young, who previously served as full leader and acting chair, emerged as the primary candidate. He's been advocating that the interim leadership should be tasked with overhauling the party to restore its approval rating and the ruling party's power to back the Yoon Suk-yeol administration. Some others call for a short-term fix and to prepare for an early convention to elect a new full-time leadership to oversee those tasks. Chairman Lee Chuseok had previously warned that he will file for a court injunction based on Tuesday's outcome. He's set to hold a press conference on Saturday. In the meantime, more than 1,000 party members are also preparing their own group filing of an injunction. Now all eyes on how much impact these opposing voices will have on Tuesday's vote. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Despite a recent recovery from the lows of the pandemic, the local economy is facing some downside risks due to global uncertainties and inflation. The Korea Development Institute says the economy has been improving moderately, led by a rise in production in the semiconductor and automobile industries. But a downturn is inevitable due to inflation and worsening conditions externally. Consumer sentiment dropped significantly last month as prices jumped by a record 6.3%. There was also slower growth in the U.S. and China, as well as fears of a potential global recession. The nation's electricity demand is expected to peak this week due to the hot weather and people returning from summer breaks. According to the Korea Power Exchange, demand is likely to top 90,000 megawatts. It's possible the figures could surpass the previous record set last month, while the reserve ratio could plunge to as low as 5.4%. In order to ensure stable supply, reserve should remain above 10%. The Energy Ministry previously forecast power demand will hit its seasonal high in the second week of August. Elsewhere around the world, over the weekend, rockets struck Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest of its kind in Europe. While the radiation levels are reportedly within normal range, the attack urged the UN Secretary General to call for an access to the facility. Lee Si-hoo reports.
Ukraine on Sunday accused Russia of launching rockets at its Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest of its kind in Europe. The plant is located in the southeastern city of Enerhodar, which has been under the control of Russian troops since early March. According to Ukraine's state-run nuclear power company Energoatom, rockets launched on Saturday night struck close to a dry storage facility where over 170 casks with spent nuclear fuel were being kept. Explosions blew out windows and one worker was hospitalized with shrapnel wounds. 3 radiation monitoring detectors were also damaged, and the plant's owners say this will make the timely detection in response to a leakage impossible. This was the second time the plant was hit following an attack on Friday. Ukraine and Russia have traded blame for the attacks. After the second attack, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday called for international inspectors to be given access to the plant.
And I hope that those attacks will end. And at the same time, I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of waging nuclear terror.
This is the largest nuclear station on our continent, and any shelling is an overt, blatant crime, a terrorist act.
According to the Washington Post, quoting a Ukrainian official on Sunday, the plant's radiation levels are still within normal range. Meanwhile, according to Ukrainian and Turkish officials, 4 more ships carrying Ukrainian grain set sail from Black Sea ports on Sunday. The ships contain almost 170,000 tons of corn and other foodstuffs. Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations reached an agreement on grain shipments back in July in Istanbul, allowing grain vessels to operate out of ports in southern Ukraine. 이시후, Arirang News.
The city of Glendale, California, home to America's first monument to the Korean victims of Japan's wartime sex slavery, observed its first Comfort Women Day in 3 years. A special exhibition was also held with a number of related artworks. Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
A statue of a girl clenching her fist. It's been over 9 years since the Peace Monument was installed in the city of Glendale, California. On July 30th, 2012, thanks to the efforts of the Korean American community and the city of Glendale, Comfort Women Day was officially declared. The very first overseas monument to commemorate the victims of sexual slavery by the Japanese Army was installed the following year. 2022 marked the 11th Comfort Women Day with a special cultural event taking place at the Glendale Central Library. It was all the more special as it was the first time the city held the event in 3 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A special exhibition was also held in which 4 Korean artists participated, and large sculptures with historic significance welcomed visitors.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were unable to fully commemorate the 10th Comfort Women Day. So for the 11th event, we brought in large sculptures to mark the day.
And there were barriers to overcome before Glendale became the very base from where the world got to be informed of the plight of the victims. In 2014, a far-right Japanese group even filed a lawsuit against the city, seeking the removal of the Peace Monument. The Korean community responded strongly, and the city of Glendale fought the lawsuit. After 3 years of legal battles, the court ruled in favor of the city, calling the installation of the monument legal. And there's a reason why the Korean community, along with the city, continue to fight to remember the victims of Japanese wartime sexual slavery.
I think we should know the history right away and pass it on to future generations. And if you're faced with opposition that doesn't make sense to you, you have to be brave and fight it.
Comfort Women Day has been promoted as an official event in Glendale since 2017, and associated events will be held until October 9th. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, Hansan Rising Dragon has topped the local box office for the 2nd week in a row. According to the Korean Film Council, the summer blockbuster took the lead back from Emergency Declaration over the weekend. The film depicting Admiral Lee Sun-shin's Battle of Hansan has sold almost 4.6 million tickets since its release on July 27th. Meanwhile, Squid Game actor Lee Jung-jae's directorial debut, Hunt, is #1 on movie reservation sites with 2 days left until it hits theaters. Starring alongside Lee is his longtime colleague in the industry, Chung Woo-sung. Hunt is the fourth and largest South Korean summer blockbuster to be released this year. A team of Korean researchers have discovered a potential new treatment for memory loss in patients with dementia. It involves targeting and inhibiting a specific type of enzyme. Yoon explains further.
Alzheimer's disease is the cause of dementia in more than 70% of diagnosed patients. When the brains of Alzheimer's disease patients are scanned, a large amount of a toxic substance called amyloid beta is found. This toxic substance is known to be the main cause of dementia as it destroys nerve cells in the brain. The development for treatments for dementia has been at a standstill for a long time. Scientists get as far as clinical trials only for treatment to show a lack of improvement in symptoms, or treatments are proven to be minimally effective compared to the side effects, as in the case of one treatment approved by the US FDA for the first time in June of last year that was known to directly remove toxic substances from the brain. But domestic researchers have now discovered a new cause for Alzheimer's disease. They confirmed that, quite similar to the urea circuit that detoxifies ammonia in the liver, there's a urea circuit in the star cells in the brain. When the urea circuit is activated in the reactive star cells, this generates putrescine, an organic compound, and GABA, a naturally occurring amino acid, which have been shown to cause dementia.
If the urea cycle in the brain is activated and leads to the recovery, there's no problem. But if the reactive star cells that detoxify ammonia and produce urea remain activated, this could be toxic to many of the surrounding cells.
ODC1 is one of the enzymes constituting the urea cycle. The research team confirmed that while the urea cycle is activated in reactive star cells, if the ODC1 enzyme is inhibited, the amount of putrescine and GABA generated through the urea circuit decreases. Tested on Alzheimer's model mice, their memory was shown to be restored.
The approach of existing dementia treatment aims to eliminate amyloid directly, but our new approach that targets ODC1 has the advantage of creating an improved environment where the toxic amyloid beta substance is naturally reduced.
This research team plans to continue follow-up research on their discovery to develop a new treatment that inhibits urea circuit enzymes. In South Korea, the annual spending on dementia, from patient care to research, stands at 16.5 trillion won, roughly $12.6 billion US dollars. This figure is expected to reach $48 billion US dollars by 2040. With more research and development, we hope each new discovery is a step closer towards finding an effective treatment for dementia. 이은진, 아리랑 뉴스.
The stationary rain front is currently stretched out across central regions. Until Wednesday, torrential downpours are forecast to lash those in southern Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, and northern Chungcheong-do provinces, where there will be severe downpours of up to 350 millimeters. The remainder of the Seoul metropolitan area and northern Gangwon-do province will see up to 300. The east coast and rest of Chungcheong-do province will see about 150 millimeters. Rain clouds will be moving around central regions overnight, causing local downpours of 50 to 80 millimeters per hour. For those across low-lying areas, please be careful of possible landslides or flooding. On the contrary, sweltering conditions are persisting across the south. For Daegu City and Jeju Island, heat wave warnings are in place. Morning conditions will be stuffy and muggy. Lows in Seoul and Busan will be kicking off at 26 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul will be reaching 27, Daejeon 29, Jeju will be scorching hot at 35 degrees. For the remainder of the week, central regions will see long spells of showers. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.